Okay, just in case you were wondering about that. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I think we have a really wonderful program on this beautiful Sunday morning. Our topic is There Is No Other. The great Indian sage Ramana Maharshi was once asked, how should we treat others? He replied, there are no others. So I'm looking forward to hearing today what all of our wonderful speakers have to tell us about this beautiful concept of connection and oneness. If everyone would please mute if you are not yet muted so we don't have interruption. And with that, I will turn this over to Doug for our official welcome.
Good morning. An official welcome. This is great. Welcome everybody to Not Church. Of course, one of the wonderful things about Not Church is that there are no requirements for being here. Nothing is expected of you. You do not have to believe in anything. You can believe in nothing. You can believe in whatever you choose, and it's all, everyone is welcome here. And today's theme, there are no others. Very wise words. Others, of course, are a group of people that are perceived as different, as foreign, as strange, often as a threat that needs to be dealt with. And the word others is a boogeyman throughout global history, but also United States history. We just came back from a road trip to Santa Fe and Taos, where we had dinner with Lance and his wife, among other folks, and a wonderful trip. But there, the realization that Native Americans are perceived as others has existed for 500 years. It's very broad and very deep. And the punctuation at the end of that sentence are the hundreds of children's bodies recently discovered outside an Indian school in British Columbia. This just keeps going. And of course, it's Native Americans, it's African Americans, it's Mexican Americans, it's Asian Americans, Chinese and Japanese, different centuries, same otherism. It's Jewish Americans, Irish Americans, Muslim Americans, LGBTQ Americans. They are the others. They're the source of all our problems. They need to be feared. They need to be dealt with. Well, on the other hand, combating that destructive and alienating impulse is the magnificent truth that there are no others. We are the others. The others are us. We are the people our parents warned us about. And once you come to that truth, once you come to that realization, you are in the process of making the world a better place than it would have been otherwise. So one of the cool things about Not Church is that there really are no others here. There aren't those who believe and those who don't believe. There's only all of us. So when I say welcome, what I really mean is welcome. Welcome to Not Church. Thank you.
With that, I will turn this over to Leslie to lead us in our meditation. Thank you, Doug.
Good morning. I'm going to do a Kundalini meditation today to root us into our oneness. Kundalini is a really ancient tradition, 5,000 years old. They call it the mother of all yoga. And today we're going to use mudra and mantra. The mantra being Gurmukhi, an ancient language that is only reserved for prayer. And if you don't want to, you can just let that wash over you and you'll still get the same effect. To set up for it, you just need to sit comfortably, stare at the tip of your nose. That gives the optic nerve a chance to stimulate the pineal gland, which is our connection to spirit. And you're just going to bring your fingers in front of your heart center. The mudra is pinky, middle finger, ring finger, over and over with each word. And I'll teach you that in a minute. You just want to not do the ring finger. So it's pinky, middle, index, right here, over and over. And then you can repeat with me or let it just wash over you. The words say, we are we are one. We are one with all that is. So eyes closed, recognizing that there is no separation between us and spirit, or us and each other. We're all sparks of the divine. The words are hummy, hum, Brahm, hum. Hummy, hum, Brahm, hum. It keeps repeating, you'll catch it. Hummy, hum, Brahm, hum. 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 Hummy, hum.
Recording in progress.
Brahm, hum. Hummy, hum, 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 Brahm, eyes closed. Deep breath in, knowing fully that which we recognize in others or aspects of ourself, that which we like or do not like, are healed or unhealed parts of ourself. Breathing in deeply, holding the breath. Exhaling slowly. Satnam.
Tom?
Hi, I guess we're done. I'm Tom Werder. How are you folks this morning? A few months ago, Nadine and Anna and Z and I were sitting around talking about, what's next for Tranquilo? What would the community benefit from the standpoint of a workshop or a seminar? And we kicked around a lot of great ideas, and they were all kind of like landing on a flat rock. But, well, what about life purpose? Well, that's a great topic, but in the moment, kind of we went, who cares, And then finally, after a few minutes of this highly elevated spiritual conversation, someone came up with and said, oh, how about relationships? And everyone lit up. Everyone started to smile and kind of giggle a little bit. We went, oh, okay, relationships. Well, that's a really cool idea. So why don't we do either a workshop or a seminar, or a series of seminars on relationships? So that's what we decided to do. And Yella and I said that we would be happy to present a series of workshops on relationships. So Yella and I were driving around trying to figure out, how we were going to approach this, what we're going to do, what would be the best way. And after a couple of weeks, and as we were driving through Utah on our way to Colorado on a vacation, Yella came up with friendship. And I thought, wow, I don't think I've ever done relationship work from the standpoint of friendship. That was really cool. We should take a look at that. That kind of really interested us and kind of kicked some energy into the whole thing. So we took a look at friendship, and we came up with 4 elements of friendship, like a framework to look at relationship through friendship, through these elements around friendship. So the first one is knowing. If you're in a relationship, you know each other, right? I mean, you got to know each other. If you don't know each other, there's no relationship. And an interesting thing about knowing each other is, think back when you were kids. And, kids, you spend a lot of time with each other. You hang out in school, you hang out after school, you hang out, you go to dances and, basketball games, and you just spend a lot of time with each other. And those childhood relationships just tend to be so rich. Even if you haven't seen someone in 40 or 50 years, it's almost like instantaneously you're friends again, because of the depth of, one of the things is the depth of knowing each other. So one of the things that would be really cool in the area of friendship would be to look at just knowing each other. Then the second thing we came up with, well, it's a good thing if you're friends, if you like each other. Now, I've seen some friendships and some partnerships and some marriages where they didn't seem to like each other much. So I'm not saying it's impossible to be friends if you don't like each other, but it's advantageous to like each other if you're going to be friends and you're going to be in a relationship. And then the third thing we looked at was trust. If you don't trust each other, it's hard to be friends. And, I had an experience of this. I was in a hiking group when we lived in Brockett, Panama. And there was one guy in this group that I was friends with, but after a while, I didn't trust him anymore. And I found that, when we'd be hiking, I'd always be at the opposite end of the line than he was, because we didn't have a friendship anymore because there was a lack of trust. So trust just seems to be a big element of friendship. And then the fourth thing, which was an interesting one, is, if you're friends and you're in a relationship, you give each other a break. Right? Like when one of your friends or your spouse does something stupid, sometimes you go, hey, that's okay. It was so and so. He or she's a friend. You give them a break. And an example of this that I get up before Yella in the morning. By the way, I'm married to Yella, who's going to be your speaker. And when I make coffee, I grind beans. When you grind beans, it's noisy, and Yella's still asleep. So I'm very careful closing the door and going to a place in the house where I'm not going to wake her up, just trying to be kind in the morning. So Yella says to me, well, Tom, I really appreciate you grinding the beans somewhere else so you don't wake me up. But right after you make coffee, you grab the dog, you go out the front door and you slam the front door. Kind of negating you being quiet. But she said it in such a way that it was light. She didn't get angry with me. She gave me a break. I'm going to give him a break because, after all, we're married and he's trying. He just didn't quite get the job done. So this fourth element is giving each other a break. And we just thought that would be a delightful way to explore the nature of friendship in relationship. Now, by the way, these seminars, which are going to be half-day seminars, their intent is that they result in the end in love, with an abundance of love. And they're also intended to be a celebration of relationship, to enhance and expand and deepen relationship. Now, believe me, you can go to work on relationship, the things that don't work, or if you're an emergency. These seminar series are not intended to be that, although they might help with that. The intention is to celebrate relationship and to expand and deepen and result in an abundance of love in the relationship. So that's where we want to go. We're planning on the first one on August 26th, which is a Thursday, from 9 to noon, and they will be on Zoom, and we'll get a lot more information out about them later because, I just have about 5 minutes here this morning, and that's enough to just let you know it's coming. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our primary speaker for the day, who is my wife, Yella. Yella, excuse me, has been involved in spirituality and personal growth for 40 years. She offers satsang. She has her own proprietary work with sound work, where she works with people in groups so that they can be fully expressed using their voice and access their true self through their voice. A very interesting body of work. And she is also a spiritual teacher and coach. So Yella, it is now all yours.
Thank you, Tom. Well done, honey. Oh, my husband. Hi, everybody. My name is Yella Werder, and gosh, I'm just so grateful to be here today. And I want to start out by just thanking Nadine and Anna and Tom and Z and everybody on the Tranquilo team, whoever else is on there that I'm not aware of, for inviting me to speak this morning. And thank you so much, Doug, for your introduction. As always, you're just a hoot. I love you. And Leslie, thank you so much for that meditation that took me to another world this morning. I had to reel myself back in. That was really great. Again, I'm just so grateful, and really it's an honor to be asked to speak. I'm sure any of us would be honored, and it's just a privilege to be able to talk to you, especially talking about Ramana Maharishi, who is in my lineage of teachers, and I just have such a profound respect for this man who was a sage, and in India he was considered a saint. He was born in the late 1800s and lived into 1950. And now my connection with Ramana was through a student of his by the name of Papaji. HWL Punja, who came to Ramana when he was very, very young man, and he would follow anybody who was considered a holy man. He was just very interested in spiritual matters, and he was a devout Hindu and loved Krishna and would dance with Krishna and have visions. And so he's telling Ramana all of this, how I have visions of Krishna. And Ramana's response was, well, where's Krishna now? And Papaji said, well, he's not here. And Ramana said, well, whatever comes and goes is not real. So this was the basis of his teaching to Papaji, that anything that comes and goes isn't real. So if what you want is reality and eternity, then you have to look at what is always here that doesn't come and then leave. So a very interesting meeting for them. Now, Ramana's story in the background, he was 16 years old when he had his spiritual awakening. He had been afraid of death his entire childhood. And he was at a relative's house with his parents one day, and this fear of death came up as he fell ill. And he was certain that he was dying, and decided that instead of fighting it or being afraid of it, he was going to just go ahead and die. So he laid down on the floor and prepared himself to die. He's 16. And he lays there and watches his heart slow down, and his pulse slow down, and his breathing slow down. And everything started to look like, okay, this is dying. This is what happens when you die. And at one point, the thought occurred to him, now, if I'm dying, then who's watching this death? Who is the witness to the death? And in that moment, made the distinction between his essence and his body expression, and really saw that this was a life-changing realization and wanted to explore it further. So he left his home at the age of 16 and went up into the mountain of Arunachala and lived in a cave. And he lived there for many years. And people were aware of his having gone up there and that he was this awakened soul. And people would come and sit at the mouth of the cave to just be with him. And pretty soon he had developed a whole gathering of students, and they were begging him to speak of his experience and talk about what was going on. And so, of course, he started teaching. And eventually they built an ashram. He came out of the cave and off the mountain and lived in this ashram for a very long time, until I think it was about 17 years before he died. He just said, I've said everything I have to say. You guys already know this, and I'm not saying anymore, and was silent for the rest of his life. But his silence still had a message. And when his students came and, like Nadine had said, came and asked him, well, how should we treat others? His response was, there are no others. And so that's what we're going to talk about this morning, is what does that mean exactly? There are no others. So Ramana was referring to the same thing, I believe, that we hear from all spiritual teachers, all religions, all the books that we read. They're all kind of pointing to the same thing, which is that love is what this is about. This is about love, and it's about light. And it's more important than the material world. And the material world is just a fleeting, it comes and goes. Like Ramana said, it's not real. It comes and goes. Whereas love is eternal. That is real. So some would even go so far as to say that the material world, as we know it, is just an illusion, not real. The Course in Miracles says that the entire universe completely all lives in your mind. It's the comings and goings of the world. It lives in your mind. And Ramana was saying that's not reality. Now, all of that sounds like absolute, utter nonsense. I think when I first heard this, I thought, you are kidding me. It sounds like nonsense until you have a direct experience of something that defies logic. Now, I would be willing to bet that every one of us here has had some kind of experience like that, that defied logic, that didn't fit into the everyday mundane activity of your life, that caught your attention because it was otherworldly or unknown or unusual. And it's an experience that leaves you remembering it. Even after years have gone by, you can remember it in detail. It's a direct experience that leaves you not so much with a sense of hope, but a sense of suspended anticipation, like an open heart to whatever comes in this moment. Whatever arises right now, I'm open to it. That kind of direct experience leaves you awake and alive. And being awake is kind of important if you want to live a life of freedom. So while sleep has its benefits, and listen, believe me, I'm a big fan of sleeping. And I think that there are a lot of benefits. You kind of sort through all of the minutia of your life when you're sleeping, and and your body does a lot of repair work, and a lot of healing goes on when you're asleep. And I'm not talking just about the sleep that you do when you're laying in bed at night. I'm talking about the sleep that you do when you're walking through your life too. Like you just realize that you've been driving for the last 2 to 3 minutes and no awareness of having been driving. Like, did I already pass that exit? Because you were just kind of asleep or off in other thoughts. The kind of asleep when you're going through your laundry list and buying groceries or whatever it is. But and it does have its benefits, is all I'm saying. But if what you really want, and this is an important factor, is it what you really want? And if what you really want and are interested in your life is to experience life fully, like living completely immersed in all of the thrills and the agonies of being alive, if what you really want is to meet reality and to meet the divine and the eternal nature of life face to face, then being awake is the way to do that. Being awake is kind of important. So Ramana's interpretation of that was that he knew himself as the core of all being. And in fact, that is what the name given him, Ramana, means in Sanskrit. It is that which lives in the core of all being, at the very heart, inside and part of everything. And that's the way Ramana lived his life and experienced himself. So when he looked at a human being sitting across from him, he did not see them as a separate entity. He saw them as just another aspect of himself, or you could say a reflection. So, of course, when he was asked about others, he said there are no others. Every person, every situation, every condition of life is a reflection of your own mind being displayed to you and creating this illusion of separation. So your mind has everything, like the Course in Miracles said, everything lives in your mind. And I can say that unequivocally because your mind is the same as my mind. We're all sharing this one mind, and it all lives in this mind. And then the images in the mind get displayed out in front of us to create this illusion that those things are separate from us. Because if you try and look at it from inside, it makes it very difficult. It's like trying to see your eyes with your eyes. And so your mind displays it out in front of you, it looks separate from you. Then you look at it and you assume that's a different other person, separate from me. Now, you don't have to believe that. Like Doug in his invitation, this is a place where we all just get to speak our hearts and be our authentic self. And so you don't have to believe it. And I know it sounds crazy. For some of us, we've been looking at the concept of everything is an illusion and just a reflection of ourselves for a long time. For others, it's a new idea. And it sounds crazy, but don't believe it. Look for yourself. And even if you do believe it, look for yourself. This was Ramana's teaching, self-inquiry. For me, what was most effective to begin to see this truth was to just act as if. So maybe it's not true that the entire universe lives in my mind, but I'm going to act as if it does and see what happens. So I'm living in Panama, and there's this group of women who play cards together, and I want to be part of the group. So I ask if I can join, and I'm told no, with no explanation. And I thought, well, that's curious. And a couple weeks later, I ran into a woman who's part of the group, and she said, how come you're not in the group? And I said, I don't know. I'd really love to be part of this group. And she said, well, I'm going to ask. And then she comes back and tells me I asked, and I was told no, with no explanation. Well, so now I'm feeling pretty wounded, and I'm feeling rejected, and I'm getting a little angry, and I start to go through a very familiar churning in my mind. Well, what's wrong with me? Did I step on somebody's toes? Well, which one of these women doesn't like me? Is it all of them, or is it just one of them? And why won't they just tell me the truth? And then I started to get really angry. Why don't they just tell me the truth? What the hell is wrong with them? These women have never been forthcoming. I never really know what any of them are thinking. And I don't really know if they're aware of how hurtful this is. And then I remembered this is where a self-inquiry comes in really handy. So if everything is in my mind, if it's all my own self.
And I have to listen to Not Church. I'm already missed that hour.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought someone was asking me to stop, but that's just somebody that's not muted. So if these women are my own self being projected out there, but they're not separate from me. This is my own self. If these women as my own self are rejecting me, then why? Why do I, in the form of these other women, not want me in this group? And that's when everything shifted, because I heard myself say, I don't want me in the group. It doesn't matter that I was in the form of other women in my mind projected out there. All of a sudden, it flipped to me being the one doing the rejecting instead of them. I realized that I didn't really want to spend time with these women. I was just trying to get in the group because I wanted to prove that I could. I wanted to prove that I was acceptable and that I could have everybody love me. But now in this moment, I could see that I didn't need to be accepted by them because there is no them. There is no other. I needed to be accepted by me, by myself. And realizing that, I was able to give myself that acceptance without having to join a group of women I didn't really want to play with. I could just accept myself. Now, you could say that none of that actually happened. It was all in my mind, but doesn't that just kind of prove the point? It is all in my mind. So there's a lot of teachers right now that are talking about how everything is a reflection of our own self. But it's not something that you can learn or realize by listening to a teacher or reading a book or going to another lecture. okay? It's only something that you can realize and learn and see for yourself by looking, by paying attention, by watching your mind. If the entire universe lives here in my mind, then everywhere I look, I'm looking at the inside of my mind, and I'm looking with my mind. Now, if you can accept that, and if you can experience that as true, then you can see that there's no mental construct in the world that lives outside of that system. Nothing that you can imagine lives outside of that system. And in that moment, all mental activity is seen as a dream. It's all seen as an illusion, a story. I told a story, and then I threw it out in front of me and then became a victim of my own story. Now, as long as I'm telling a story, I'm trapped in the illusion. And as soon as I recognize that my mind is telling me another story, I become the observer of the story, and it loses its power. It loses its power to dominate my feelings. When there's a willingness to not follow the thoughts in my mind, to not create another story about what's being felt in the moment, then something's revealed about the complete perfection of that moment. I'm going to say that again. When I'm willing to not create a story about what is happening in this moment, then in this moment, something is revealed about the perfection of this moment. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I see this in every moment of my life. But if and when I do have a conflict with another person, and of course, this comes in really handy in relationship with a spouse. And of course, we'll cover all of that when we do our relationship workshop that Tom and I are going to be doing together. But when I do have a conflict, I stop and I look to see how does this, quote, other person a reflection of me and my feelings and my opinions and my misunderstanding. How is this reflecting me? And it doesn't always come in perfect clarity. So here's an example. In Panama, I worked with a guitar player, and he reflected something that I didn't enjoy seeing. And what I saw was that he was refusing to share the spotlight with me. And so I would look at him and I'd say, now, this guy's refusing to share the spotlight with me. Now, I'm very generous when I'm on stage with the spotlight. I don't have any problem sharing my spotlight. And so this guy isn't a reflection of me. I don't have any problem sharing the spotlight. But if I'm only looking at the circumstance, at the physical manifestation of the issue, it's really easy to miss. But if I'm looking at the principle of it, then I see it in a more basic way. And the more basic way would be, this guy's being stingy. Well, I can look into my life and see that I am stingy too. Maybe not with my spotlight, but with other things. Everybody has places where they grab and don't want to let go. So I could get that stinginess. And now he's reflecting this stinginess to me. And once I can see it, I can feel some gratitude for having a mirror in front of me that's showing me where I need to correct my errors, where I need to clean up my own consciousness. Oh, I've got stinginess going on in my life. I need to look and see where that is and where can I be more generous. Now, this person that I've been having a conflict with became my ally in that moment. In that moment, this person becomes my teacher. He becomes my brother. So whether you're approaching this as a psychological exercise or a spiritual practice or a deep inquiry into the nature of true being, I'm inviting you to try on the idea that everything you look at is an illusion. Everything you look at is a reflection of your mind, and it's all just the comings and goings. And when you see it, I would be really interested in knowing what experience you're left with. See if it doesn't leave you with love. And I am truly genuinely interested in your personal experiences. So if you try this and you have an experience that you want to share, I would love to hear from you. Please email me. My email address is in the notes off to your right. And it's also, I can just give it to you if you know my name, Yella Werder. It's yellawerder@gmail.com. So write me, let me know if you have questions, or if you just say, I tried this and it didn't work, or I tried it and oh my God. So whatever it is, I'd love to hear from you. And I thank you for your listening this morning and letting me share some ideas with you.
Thank you, Yella. That was fantastic. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Doug and Tom and Leslie and Yella. Wow, a lot to unpack here this morning. A lot of self-inquiry seems like a good idea. Have a look inside, look for where we're the same, because in truth, we are all one. When we take away the things that are temporary, that are passing, that change constantly, and we get down to the basics, we see that we are indeed all one. So with that, I'm kind of reeling with a lot going on in my head and a lot of things to try and do. I would open this up if anyone has questions pertaining to this topic. We will, of course, be sending out information on this wonderful workshop coming up with Tom and Yella. I think it's going to be pretty great on friendship and, trust and understanding and knowing, and how that all helps us see ourselves better and get along better with those we care about. So I think it's going to be a really, really great experience, and be on the lookout in your inbox for an email from us soon, giving all the details and how you can become involved in that. So if anyone has any questions, raise your hand or unmute or whatever it is you might like to say. If you have a question for Yella or Leslie, it's nice to have Leslie with us this morning. We haven't seen you here, and to have some Kundalini meditation, getting down to the base of that spirit, was a pretty great way to start our morning. And Leslie, are you back to doing classes again?
Yeah, I'm back. Yep, at Las Rocas, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay, so if anybody, if anybody put your contact information in the chat, and we will publish chat notes when we post the pictures, and there'll be a recording of today, because I think there's a lot to go back and look at, and maybe some instructions on how we can inquire into what's going on with us. So we'll let you know how to contact Leslie, how to contact Yella, Tom, and anything else. Anybody else have any questions or Mary, unmute, please.
Yella, have you found that over time that this process becomes more instantaneous, or is it always a question of stepping back and kind of thinking through it, so to speak?
Absolutely. I think the more you practice, the better you get at anything. And so, yes, the more I practice stopping, looking to see, oh, wait a minute, this isn't even real. It's happening inside me. The faster I catch it. Yes.
I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes when you get something that's really intense, because I think everybody, you'll get a situation in life that just gets really, really intense, then that might take a little more time to, like Nadine was saying, you got to stop and unpack it. Now, the incidents that I referred to with the women and the card game, to be honest with you, the moment of inquiry was like a snap of the finger, twinkling of an eye. It all happened at once. And when I described it, I kind of teased it out to show what happened, but it all happened at once, which I think most of us experience, that when you have a realization, it's like you realize everything. So you couldn't put it all in words in the time it took for you to realize it.
I found lately too, I'm becoming more successful at, you know, being aware of certain symbols or messages in dreams, and then having the synchronicity appear in terms of other people, or, you know, however it manifests. So that's been very useful.
Yes. And one of the questions that I try to get in the habit of asking myself when I see symbols or dreams or things, people saying to me, like, you know, the same thing shows up 3 times in one day, and you have to ask, it's like, oh, well, given that it's all in my own mind, what am I trying to tell myself? And that's a really great question that I live with daily. What am I saying to myself? What am I trying to tell myself? Or if I catch myself just in a churning, it's like, what am I arguing for? What am I arguing about? What is it that what point am I trying to make? You know, and it's an interesting conversation to have with yourself.
This seems like a really good opportunity to put in a plug for meditation, because if you go back to Ramana, and we talk about the method of self-inquiry and what allows these realizations to occur, the key is silence. The key is spending time in silence, quieting down the chatter and listening deeply. As I just heard Adyashanti say this morning, listen deeply with all of your senses, not just with your mind. Listen with your body, listen with your taste, your smell, your touch, just listen. And then someone else I know, very dear, says, listen to the silence beneath the silence. And that silence is where we are all one, where we all share common space. That's where it all happens. So I'm putting in a big plug for meditation, silence, and quiet here, because that is the way to have those realizations and to notice them, because often they can happen and they just go right by you and you don't notice them if you're not paying attention. And the key to paying attention, again, is silence. So also at this time, I'd like to put in another little announcement, is we in our happiness study group have 2 more weeks of our current book, which we're studying with Adyashanti. And then we will be starting a new book. Anyone is welcome to join us at any time. The new book is another Adyashanti book called Falling into Grace. And all of the self-inquiry. In fact, last week we just talked about what Tom mentioned, giving your friends a break. What he calls it is pivot to peace. When you have an opportunity to take an action or to say something, if you have the wherewithal to stop and not react, to act consciously instead of from a point of habitual reactivity, you can pivot to peace, which will undoubtedly improve the quality of your relationships with friends, family, spouses, anyone around you. So that's it from me. Does anyone else have anything else to say or comment or question before we call it a day here?
I have one, if you can hear me.
Yes,
for
I can
Yella.
hear you, John.
you talked about you wanted to belong to that group.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
thinking about the Groucho Marx line, I'd never join a group that would have me for a member. And it's similar concept there. But the fact that what came to me is that we sometimes are wearing a mask to others. And even in a relationship, oftentimes I found that people are pretending to be a certain way. And at some point they reveal who they really are. And then you're like you were revealed, where you're like, I don't really want to belong to that group. And you're like, do you ever have that? And what do you do if you're in that kind of committed relationship to say, wow, I just realized this person is really that way and I don't like that. What do you do?
Well, again, I look to see how is that a reflection of me? If there's something I don't like about the way that person is being, I have to look at myself. It's like if I'm looking in a mirror and I see spinach hanging from my teeth, I can't make any impact on that by smashing the mirror or trying to pull the spinach out of the mirror. I have to do it over here if I want to see it out in the reflection.
Well, yeah,
Simple.
I think that's perfect. Yeah, you have to look at yourself to see where you have misconceptions, misperceptions, see
I'm
if
not-
it is, yeah, right?
I'm not saying that that's an easy,
Oh,
simple, or pleasant thing to do. I'm not even saying it's the right thing to do. All I'm saying is that it puts the steering wheel back in my hands. I mean, I can go on and on for a long time telling you everything that's wrong with another person that I'm in relationship with that hasn't treated me well. I can tell you everything that's wrong with them. But until I look and see how they're just reflecting my own misbehaviors and my own character flaws, then I'm just fooling myself and suffering. But as soon as I can recognize it as my own, then I can stop suffering, because now I have the steering wheel. Oh, I'm the asshole. Now I get to fix something. They're not the asshole.
well, but isn't it possible that they might be?
Well, yes, chances are that they are. But when you recognize that every asshole you know in this life lives inside you.
Right, so you can transform, but then sometimes, as John was asking, sometimes you see what's within you, you see what there is in that other person that reflects on you. And sometimes you go, okay, I acknowledge that, whatever that is in myself, and I'm going to work on that, but that's really not for me, and
Right.
I don't want to be around that.
Right.
Well,
So there are
inside of you.
decisions, yeah, but you need to have the awareness of truth, of the reality of yourself, before you can make any judgments about the other person sitting across from you. And then sometimes you have to make choices, as we said way back in our study of Elliot Dasher, cultivate and abandon. Cultivate what takes you in the right direction and abandon what takes you in the direction you don't really want to go. And that includes things, activities, people, whatever. So
Absolutely. And
there are
listen, it would be irresponsible to not take care of your physical body and your emotional body and your relationships. It would be irresponsible to not walk away from an abusive situation. So yes, it's very important to take care of those things.
Mhm.
And at the same time, when you have the presence of mind to stop and look and see and go into self-inquiry, then you can stop the suffering. So it's like something happens, you need to respond to it in the physical realm, you respond, all of that's great. I'm talking about what happens after the fact, that after the story has occurred, then the story gets retold and retold and retold in the mind. That's when this inquiry is really, really important.
Yeah,
But
we
yeah,
have
there's
to know
times
the
that you have to
truth.
just walk away. Absolutely.
Right. And we have to know the truth and be able to recognize the stories that we tell ourselves that aren't necessarily true, you know.
Well, I think
There's
it's a lot of self-reflection, right? And looking at one of the things, I mean, I love that, yeah, that's going a little deeper than, or a different way, I guess, for me, because something that I do is, okay, what's getting triggered in me, or what need isn't being met? You know, whenever I'm upset about something, it's something that's getting triggered in me. And then also looking at people differently, those experiences differently, in terms of what are they here to teach me? So as you're mentioning, if somebody's being an asshole, okay, are they being an asshole because I don't know how to speak up, or I need to speak up more, you know, whatever it may be, but it still comes back to us, right? Because whatever we react to has to do with us. And like you were saying, especially in relationships, it's easy to point a finger at them. And when you look at you, it's like, okay, I'm not being heard, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
But I love the depthness of what you were what you shared today.
Thank you, Beatrice. And I think it's important to mention also that while you see the asshole out there reflected and you can see the asshole in yourself, it's really important that when you listen to your most revered teachers and people that you love, that you see yourself there as well. So that when your teacher is speaking brilliantly, you recognize your own brilliance. Teacher is speaking with such wisdom, you recognize this is my wisdom. I wouldn't be able to see it if it wasn't mine.
That's a beautiful point.
Wouldn't be able to see the ass if it wasn't mine either.
Right.
So,
Well,
but
that's
all
the
of
whole
it,
point of all this, is seeing clearly. That is
exactly.
the point. To see clearly, to appreciate with gratitude, to know reality, all of that that's kind of what we're going for here.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone.
There you go. Well, thank you, everyone. What a stimulating, inspiring meeting we had today.
Thanks,
It was
everybody.
really
Thanks,
wonderful
Nadine.
to be with you. Thank you all. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Yella. And thank you for everyone who participated today. We look forward to seeing you. Stay tuned for information about the workshop, new book study, and next month's Not Church. Enjoy the rest of your August, and we will see you soon. Have a wonderful
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Nadine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Goodbye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye,
Thank
goodbye.
you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. 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 I'm ending for all now.